It's July 2nd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with a deadly car accident in Central Seoul. A car plowed into a crowd of people at an intersection near Seoul City Hall on Monday night, killing at least 9. The 68-year-old driver who was arrested at the scene reportedly told the police the car suddenly accelerated. North Korea a few hours ago claimed to have test-fired a new tactical ballistic missile that's capable of carrying a super-large warhead on Monday. The regime says another test of the missile is scheduled for this month. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled on Monday that former presidents have broader immunity from criminal prosecution for all official acts. That pretty much ends the prospect of Donald Trump being tried for election interference or involvement in the January 6th riots before the November presidential election. At least 9 people died and 4 others were injured when a car plowed into pedestrians in downtown Seoul on Monday night. The driver is reportedly blaming sudden unintended acceleration for the accident. Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
A devastating scene in downtown Seoul on Monday night when a car drove into a group of pedestrians waiting at a crosswalk. Police say 9 people were killed and 4 others were injured in the accident near Seoul City Hall at around 9:27 p.m. The driver, a 68-year-old man, is blaming sudden unintended acceleration for the accident. However, a witness at the scene is saying otherwise.
마지막에 밟은 거예요. 저기 앞에서 다치고 나서 거의 치고 나서요. 그 앞에서. 급발진 차량은 사고 날 때 알잖아요. 전봇대라도 박아야 되잖아요. 그거 없어서 그냥 거기서 딱 멈췄어요.
Another expert said that the driver did not try to avoid the pedestrians, as you would in case of a sudden acceleration, adding that the deadly accident could have simply been caused by a mistake or carelessness. The vehicle was also seen driving in the wrong direction and collided with 2 vehicles before hitting people. Police who apprehended the driver said he was not under the influence of alcohol. Investigators are not fully ruling out the possibility of issues within the car, considering the speed, reportedly 100 kilometers per hour, involved. Police say they will swiftly carry out the investigation based on statements from the driver and witnesses, CCTV and security camera analysis. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
North Korea says it tested a tactical ballistic missile carrying a super-large warhead on Monday, and it vowed to carry out another test launch of this new type of missile later this month. Peunji reports.
A day after its latest missile launch, North Korea has claimed that it successfully tested a new type of tactical ballistic missile, carrying a 4.5-ton super-large warhead. This is the first time that the North has said it tested such a missile. The North state-run media said Tuesday that the test of the new missile, named Hwasongpo 11Ta 4.5, was conducted with a mock warhead, aimed at verifying flight stability and accuracy, to see if it can fly a maximum range of 500 kilometers and minimum range of 90 kilometers. It added that the regime will carry out another test launch of the same type of missile this month, to test the accuracy and the explosion power of the super-large warhead. South Korea's military detected 2 ballistic missiles fired by North Korea early on Monday. One was launched at around 5:05 a.m. and the next at 10 minutes later, both fired from the Changyeon area of the North's Hwanghae-namdo province. The first one, presumed to be a short-range ballistic missile, flew around 600 kilometers before landing in the sea. This was followed by a second missile that only traveled around 120 kilometers. The military said the second launch appears to have been unsuccessful and said the debris could have landed near the North's capital area. It assumed that both missiles could have been the Hwasong-11 short-range ballistic missiles, which were also test-launched from the Changyeon area last year, but did not completely rule out the possibility of a test launch of a new type of missile. Meanwhile, a plenary meeting of North Korea's ruling party took place for 4 days in Pyongyang until Monday, focusing on the economic situation. State media said Tuesday that Kim Jong-un assessed the regime's economy in the first half of this year has improved compared to the same period last year, and that crops across the regime's farmlands are also doing well. What's notable about the latest plenary meeting was that North Korean officials were seen wearing a pin with an image of Kim Jong-un for the first time, as part of the regime's latest efforts to strengthen the power of its third-generation leader. 배은지, Arirang News.
South Korea's fight against chronically low birth rates continues, with its latest effort being the launch of a population control tower at the deputy prime minister level. Now, it'll also be in charge of strategies related to the aging population. Our Shin Ha-young has more.
Following high-level meetings with the ruling party, the government announced plans on Monday morning to create a new ministry called the Ministry of Population Strategy Planning, focused on tackling the country's falling birth rate. This comes as President Yoon Suk-yeol declared a national emergency last month as the number of newborns in the country continues to fall and vowed to make every effort to handle the issue. The birth rate dropped to 0.72 in 2023, the lowest in the world. The new ministry will be in charge of creating strategies not only to boost the birth rate, but also for overall population issues.
The ministry has been named the Ministry of Population Strategy Planning to cover all aspects of population policy, including low birth rates, an aging society, workforce, and immigration.
The ministry will be in charge of formulating policies regarding the low birth rate and related mid to long-term population strategies, taking over the responsibilities currently held by the health and finance ministries. Once established, it will have the authority to review budgets and consult with other ministries on related projects. The ministry will also enhance public awareness through campaigns on population issues and conduct research and analysis on demographic data. The head of the ministry will also serve as the country's deputy prime minister for social affairs, currently served by the education minister. The government plans to propose a revised Government Organization Act within July to establish the ministry. It expects the new ministry to begin operations about 3 months after the revision bill is passed, following necessary procedures such as personnel recruitment, budget allocation, and a parliamentary confirmation hearing for the minister. The Presidential Committee on Aging Society and Population Policy will also be transferred to the new ministry under a new name, the Committee on Population Crisis Response. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
France's far-right national rally enjoyed some remarkable gains in the first round of the country's snap parliamentary elections. Will the far-right be able to rule France for the first time in over 5 decades? We're joined by Professor Mason Ricci. It's good to have you back.
Great, thanks for having me.
First of all, for those of us who may not be too familiar with the far-right national rally, Professor Ricci, please do explain what the party represents and where it's come from.
Sure. Ideologically, the roots go back to the early 1950s, a movement known as Poujadisme. This was named after Pierre Poujade, who was a populist, anti-tax, pro-colonial, who put together a group of very small, relatively extreme parties who were in particular really upset about the fact that under Charles de Gaulle, France was willing to perhaps give up its colonies in North Africa, or its colony in North Africa, Algeria. The modern incarnation of the National Rally goes back to 1972 when it was founded by Jean-Marie Le Pen, who was its first president. He was a populist, nationalist, anti-Semite, anti-Islam, anti-immigrant leader. He remained party leader until 2011. His daughter, Marine Le Pen, took over in 2012 and sort of rebranded the party. It's changed its name from the National Front to the National Rally, and has also attempted to sort of tone down some of the sharp edges of the party, notably, some of the more strident anti-Semitic and anti-immigrant rhetoric, at least. She currently shares power with Jordan Bardella, a 28-year-old who is technically party leader and would be the presumptive nominee for the prime minister's position if the National Rally were to get an absolute majority in the upcoming legislative election.
Right, and let's talk about the first round of the election. The vote turnout in Sunday's poll soared to reach 67%. Now, that's the highest in a parliamentary election since 1997. What does such a record figure indicate?
Well, one of the things that it means is that we have a record number of second round election situations in which you might potentially have 3 or even 4 candidates because of the way that French legislative elections work. We don't have time to go into it in detail, but the short version of the story is unless you win an absolute majority, the first and second place candidates move into the second round, and any candidate who gets 12.5% or more of the vote of the total number of of registered voters in a district move into the second round. And so one of the big things, therefore, that comes out of this is we have a lot of these possibilities simply because the mass of voters is higher. This means that we're going to have a lot of attention paid today when the final decision is made about which candidates are going to move into the second round. As to whether or not some of these candidates on the center right and the center left will drop out, so that the 3- and 4-way races will be reduced to 2-way races, because these 3- and 4-way races, they tend to split the vote and will allow the National Rally to have more candidates who win in the second round. So we don't know exactly how this is going to shake out. This is what's going on today in France, and this means that the outcome is less knowable. I think a second issue is that the record turnout means that whatever the outcome is, the French National Assembly will have more political legitimacy than ever before. And thirdly, I would argue that this simply shows us that the National Rally has picked up more supporters compared into previous elections. Even though their percentage numbers aren't that much higher than 2017, the total number of voters is higher. And so in that regard, we see that the National Rally has been picking up support within France.
Definitely enjoying the upper hand for now. Professor Ricci, let's say the far-right National Rally ends up ruling France. How big of a change will that be for France? I mean, what noticeable changes should we expect to come out right away?
Sure. Currently, this is not the most likely outcome. The most likely outcome is that we're going to end up with some type of hung parliament or some type of minority technocratic government. But if the National Rally were to present the prime minister and take over that office, among other things, it would mean a very significant testing of French political traditions. The tradition under these situations where the president is of a different party from the prime minister is known as cohabitation. And that has been ruled by tradition, where essentially the president retains control over foreign security and defense matters, and domestic politics are left largely to the parliament and to the prime minister and the government of ministers surrounding the prime minister. I think we're going to see a real test as to whether or not that can work, because that's not statutory. That's not contained in statute. That's just French political tradition. Domestically, you would have a lot less power from Macron. And one of the things that would mean is that the Europe policy of France would shift dramatically, because that's considered to be domestic politics. And so although Macron would continue to represent France at EU Council, so head of state meetings, it's the ministers who go to the various European Council of Ministers meetings, and so the Parliament and the ministers would have a lot more authority over Europe than previously. Secondly, internationally, we would see probably less cooperation with allies. We would see potentially France moving to exit NATO's integrated military command. And we would see a lot more Russia-friendly behavior, quite likely, from France, including, therefore, also less support for Ukraine.
Professor Ricci, you mentioned this figure, the face of National Rally, Jordan Bardella, earlier. He did play a huge role in the victory this time, didn't he? I mean, he is on his way to become the youngest prime minister of France.
Yeah, so he has a sort of star quality in a way. He's a good-looking guy. He's young, and as I said, the National Rally, especially under Marine Le Pen, has been trying to polish their image. Take away some of the sharp edges. Hide some of the party's anti-Semitic, Nazi-friendly origins. And he has a backstory which is sort of compelling. He comes out of a banlieue, a suburb outside of Paris called Drancy, in one of the poorer areas or in and around Paris. He does himself have some immigrant background, and so he's able to sort of use this as a part of his narrative, about how it's possible for the little guy to climb the ladder and become powerful and successful in France. I'll also note that there's some charges of nepotism, insofar as Marine Le Pen's older sister is also his stepmother. So within the national rally, there's also been some charges of nepotism that have been helping his rise to power.
Definitely quite a character. All right, Professor Ricci, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Israel on Monday released the head of Gaza's al-Shifa hospital from prison, 7 months after being accused of working with Hamas. Muhammad Abu Salmiya, who was arrested in November, was one of the more than 50 Palestinians released from prison, leading to intense backlash from Israel's cabinet against intelligence officials and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Israel's prison service denied earlier reports that the hospital chief was released due to prison cell shortage. Meanwhile, Netanyahu said Monday that his military is nearing the end of the stage of eliminating Hamas in Gaza. He also vowed the return of Israeli hostages and the elimination of Hamas's military and governing capabilities in the region. Summer vacation season will soon be upon us. To welcome tourists from both at home and abroad, more countries in the Asia-Pacific region are promoting sustainable tourism in the form of eco-friendly villages. Our Lee Soo-jin has more.
It's that time of the year when the urge to travel goes up with the temperature. But now more travelers are looking for ways to help the planet when they go on vacation. And that's why leaders in the political world and tourism sector met in Cebu on Friday to discuss how to meet the demand for sustainable tourism at the 36th joint meeting of the UN Tourism Commission for East Asia and the Pacific.
We must go green in the transformation of our tourism product. I am of the belief that the greener you are, the better the tourism experience will be.
And one way countries in the Asia-Pacific region offer sustainable tourism is through eco-friendly villages.
One such eco-friendly village here in the Philippines is Boho, which is named one of UN Tourism's best tourism villages in 2021 for its commitment to sustainability and promoting local communities.
Tourists can travel down the Boho River, which spans 1.4 kilometers, in eco-friendly wooden boats where they're surrounded by mangrove trees and sounds of more than 60 bird species. And these sustainable practices have also reached the local population, as the traditional dance performances for those who visit Boho have created jobs. At another eco-friendly village where the Boho River enters the ocean, locals weave fiber ropes from the husks of coconuts to create biodegradable tents. There are also cooking demonstrations, keeping the village's traditions alive through food. Tours of eco-friendly villages are also available at 2 villages on South Korea's Jeju Island that were recognized as best tourism villages last year. Sewa Village keeps its local traditions alive by allowing tourists to experience the Haenyeo culture. And this also provides a chance for the female divers to make extra income. Dongbek Village promotes local products made with camellias, from which the village got its name, to produce oil that is used to create various local dishes. And these tour options have wide-reaching positive effects.
It is a huge contributor to the balance of payments, to income, and we see that through many programs that we have ourselves, like Tourism for Rural Development, where we have a lot of villages in Korea as well.
She added that to keep the momentum of eco-friendly bilateral tourism going, countries will need to work together to ease visa regulations and increase air capacity. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News, Cebu.
Good morning, I'm Kim Seong, and now we turn to stories from around the world. We begin today in the US, where the Supreme Court has said that Donald Trump and other former presidents are partially immune from prosecution in Monday's landmark ruling recognizing presidential immunity for the first time. The U.S. Supreme Court justices ruled 6-3 on Monday, saying that former President Donald Trump cannot be prosecuted for any official acts that were within his constitutional rights as the incumbent president. He can still face charges for private, unofficial acts committed. The 3 liberal members who voted against immunity for the official acts said they, quote, fear for our democracy. Justice Sonia Sotomayor added a warning that the president is now a king above the law. The ruling will have a huge impact on the federal criminal case against Trump on charges attempting to overturn the 2020 election. Airplane manufacturer Boeing is set to face criminal charges over fraud related to 2 fatal crashes of its 737 MAX jets. The U.S. Justice Department will criminally charge Boeing and offer the plane maker a plea deal that includes a financial penalty of some $500 million and independent audits for safety and compliance practices under 3 years of probation. Last month, U.S. prosecutors suggested for the Department of Justice to bring criminal charges against Boeing for violating a 2021 settlement covering 2 crashes in 2018 and 2019 that killed 346 people. Both crashes were reportedly linked to faulty flight control systems, and part of the 2021 deal involved creating a compliance system related to these safety aspects. However, in May, the Justice Department found that Boeing failed to do so, stating a breach of the deal. Boeing will reportedly have until the end of the week to plead guilty or face a trial. A fearsome Category 4 storm hit islands in the Caribbean on Monday, bringing catastrophic winds, life-threatening storm surges, and intense rainfall. Hurricane Beryl made landfall on Grenada's Carrico Island on Monday morning with speeds of up to around 240 kilometers per hour. Grenada Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, in a news briefing, spoke of widespread reports of destruction and devastation, adding that Carriacou was flattened in 30 minutes. While communications are mostly down, there are no immediate reports of deaths or injuries on the island. While a hurricane watch has been announced for Jamaica, a tropical storm warning is in place for the Windward Islands and the southern coast of Haiti. Hurricane Beryl reportedly strengthened from a tropical depression to a major hurricane in some 42 hours. It is also the earliest Category 4 Atlantic hurricane on record. A Chinese space rocket under development accidentally launched during a test before falling and crashing into the ground. Beijing Tianbing Technology Company, also known as Space Pioneer, said on Sunday that its Tianlong-3 rocket under development detached itself from the launch pad during a test on Sunday due to a structural failure. It then fell and crashed into a mountain 1.5 kilometers southwest of the test site in Gongyi City, in central China's Henan province. No casualties were reported. Footage shows the rocket slowly launch before it appears to lose power, crashing down to the ground and exploding. The Tianlong-3 has been developed with the intention of being a reusable rocket.
Good morning. Monsoon rain will pour down today. Certain provinces are seeing heavier showers this hour, but rain will lash down in the capital area soon. And 30 to 50 millimeters an hour of heavy showers could pound down on many parts of Korea. Until tomorrow morning, the upper parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do could see more than 120 millimeters, and Seoul and surrounding areas could see up to 100 millimeters of downpours. So rain advisory has already been issued in parts of Gyeongsang-do and Jeollado provinces, but more regions could be under a rain advisory later in the day, along with a wind advisory. But Jeju will be free from rain, but it will be quite windy. And along with sunshine, the island will have a high of 33 degrees Celsius this afternoon, but heat takes a break with rain in central areas, topping out at 25 degrees here in Seoul and over in Chuncheon. Now the rain lets up tomorrow morning, then another band of rain is in the forecast for later this week and into the weekend. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We will be back tomorrow at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.